Peace, peace, family. This video right here is about the one true law. So we're going to be breaking down what is the one true law, what is the difference between statutes, policies, where they come from, and who naturally should be given an authoritarian platform to enforce the law. Now, what is the law? The law, by definition, is a sequence of principles and rules established within a community, right, and carried out by the authoritarian figure of that community. So that being said, where do the set of principles and rules come from? First of all, and I'm going to be going into this in a second, there's only one true law, which is do not transgress on the free will of another entity. And outside of that, all other minute infractions come into play. For example, if I don't give you permission to take my stuff and you take it, you transgress on my free will. So how did you do that? You burglarized my home while I was gone. So now we're just saying how you infracted upon the only one law. So that being said, there's only one true law, which is do not interfere with the free will of another being. Now, with that being said, when we're talking about policies and statutes and breaking the law, okay, the law you're following is not the law of the creator. You're following the rules and regulations of a corporate entity and a business. So now let me break this down, right? The definition of policies is what? Actions proposed by an individual, government, or organization. So that's a definition of a policy. Statute is what? Okay, a statute is the laws imposed, or the rules, or the principles imposed, the principles proposed by an organization or an institute. So you're following the rules and regulations of a corporation, an organization, a governmental body, and an institute. You're not following the rules of the universe. So if somebody says don't go 30 miles per hour and you get a ticket, that has nothing to do with nature. That has nothing to do with the universe. That has everything to do with the ideology of Masonic occultic practitioners who founded this country. So when you say you're following the law, you're not following the law of God, whoever you believe in. You're not following the law of the creator. You're following the law of somebody who you never met. They're an Illuminati member, a elitist member. They live in Europe. They own the motherfucking IRS, which is not a goddamn an American-owned business agency. So your tax dollars is going to somebody who's not even an American, and you're all working and you're slaves for Europe. So that being said, let me keep it kicking. Now we're talking about the one true law, and we're talking about, where this comes from. We have to understand history for a second before I even go into this. So we understand that at one point in time, black people were slaves over here, right? Not all, but some were slaves. Now, this is where you get free man and you get non-free man, right? Black people that were considered unfree and were slaves were considered business stock. Same as cattle are considered today on the farm. So that being said, they were sold in exchange for financial currency. Now, when Abraham Lincoln allegedly freed the slaves, which he didn't, black people fought their way out of slavery. Look up the Gullah Wars. Outside of that, when Abraham Lincoln allegedly freed the slaves, he didn't free the slaves. The word citizen the word slave became citizen, and the word slave master became governor, and the word plantation became state. So every citizen in every state is enslaved to the debt owed to the government and is being paid back by their governor. So the governor of every state has took an oath to repay the government that, and the third amount of debt through the energetic labor of its citizens. Look it up. So that being said, when they killed Abraham Lincoln, the reason they killed Abraham Lincoln, white people specifically, was not because he freed the slaves. That's a lie. They killed Abraham Lincoln because he included them into slave trafficking. So what he said, basically what happened was white people said, wait a minute, Abe, y'all done sat here and worked these black people and made them do y'all bidding for financial currency, okay, and business transitory interactions. And then not only did you convert them into a citizen, which is a slave to the government, okay, which is a paper slave, now you're going to make everybody a goddamn citizen. Because remember, white people were not subjected to the law at one point in time. This is why they were not going to jail for alleged crimes. So now with that being said, all Abraham Lincoln did was convert the word slave into citizen, made everybody into citizens, which is paper slaves. Look up straw man, etc., etc. We're not going to make this video into that, but look it up. And he turned everybody into slaves to the government, and white people shot his ass for that. So with that being said, that's why they killed Abraham Lincoln. Now, this is 2017. We're all paper slaves. Welcome to the future. Now, with that being said, when we're dealing with today, slave patrol, okay, and if you look at the badge, go look up the badge of slave patrol, which was people whose job was to catch slaves, and outside of the brutality they did to slaves, their job was to make sure that the stock or the cattle didn't run away. So you got people who have a goddamn horse or a cow runs off the farm, their job is to go catch it and bring it back. That was the job of the slave patrol, outside of the rape and the extra shit they did. But with that being said, their job was to make sure that these Negro cattle did not get away, so that the money was not lost that they were accumulating. And then the slave patrol, once America became a corporation in 1776, which is a business, go look it up, it became a business entity. Slave patrol became police control. Police is what? Policy control. What is policy? The proposed principalities and ideas of an organization or government. So that being said, once America became corporate, it became an organization, okay? And you became a piece of individually owned property by the United States of America, which is a corporation. So that being said, the slave patrol became the policy patrol. So law enforcement is nothing more than policy enforcement. So the law enforcers of this country's job is to do what? Enforce the policies and statutes of a business, not God. So that being said, when you answer to a judge, you're not answering to God. When they say you're breaking the law, you didn't break the law of God. You broke the law of a nigga who owns a business. So that being said, if in my business I say that, let's say it's okay to not have a shirt on, but then over there you gotta put a shirt on. If you come in my business and you break my law, my principle, my statute, I'm gonna take you to court and you're gonna have to see a judge whose state agrees with my rules and regulations and will enforce the penalty upon you. But if you go over there, then you won't be considered breaking my law. So when we talking about life, whose law are we following? You know, I'm so sick of people saying the law, the law, the law. Motherfucker, this is a business, okay? And you need to learn proper business management. So we talking about breaking the law, fines, statutes, principles, even going to jail. All of that shit is nothing more than a cultic ritual, period. So this, I'm going to say it again. This is why when you go to court, right, they summons you. What is it? What do you summon? You summon spirits, okay? You attach an energetic medium, okay, or a doorway to the energy you're trying to bring. So that being said, we know that John is an American name. So a black person's name never could actually be John because we're of indigenous and African descent. But if my name is John and mentally you connect with me, then when I pass away, every time you say John, you're going to think of me, even though I have no origin that equates or synchronizes with the origin of the name John. So that being said, names are just mediums for energy to interact with each other. So when you go to court, if you get a warrant or a summons, if they say we're summoning John Doe, when you come to court, all you're doing is you're presenting the physical collateral for whoever they believe John Doe is. So it's a summoning process. It's a ritual process. Then when they come, they say you broke this statute or this policy, okay, or this law, and we're going to charge you. What are they charging you for? They're charging you for your energy, your soul. What is that? Time. Because your body is what solidified light. And as it begins to uncondense and basically demodulate or evaporate, you are undergoing death. So they're charging you for your time that you could be doing anything else in this goddamn war, in this world. So this is why, just like when you spend money, because money is what? Currency. Currency is electricity. You charge your credit card. So when you go to court and you get charged with a crime, okay, this allows you underneath the 13th Amendment to become what? A slave to the government. So that being said, you're a slave in society as a citizen, but when you go back to prison, you become a slave underneath the name of a convict or an inmate. Now with that being said, they charge you for your energy. Okay, then after they charge you, they sentence you. And then they send you off to what? A plantation to do their bidding for a certain amount of time. They're draining your energy, okay? And then they put you in a cell. Now, cells do what? Input and output energy. Even the cells in your body, they input and output energy. So for a certain amount of time while you're in jail, they open your cell, you go out, you do what you do. You might make license plates, you might go work, you do something around the plantation, then you go to the prison yard, do what you do, and then after a certain amount of time, they put you back in your cell, and you rest, and they charge you back up. So basically, the prison system is like a body, and all of the inmates are literally like the cells that make up a body, being functioning just like the cells in the body. They're outputting and inputting energy. And then after a certain amount of time, right, they kick you out and then they replace you with new cell mates, okay? So that being said, all of this shit is occultic. Just like when you driving on the street, the red lights on the back of the car is symbolic to blood cells. That is keeping, you know, the body of America flowing. But that's another video for another time. Now, with that being said, coming back to my point. So that being said, your energy is being extracted not for breaking the laws of the Creator, but for breaking the laws of satanic devil worshippers who play the fake ass role of the Creator. So that being said, when we say the law, the only true law is don't transgress on another person's free will. Everything else is statutes and policies that is making this shit complicated. And this is why people are breaking the law, because they're purposely being placed into environments where they have no other choice but to survive. So with that being said, if you put a person somewhere where they're hungry and then there's no food, but then up the street there's food, and you tell them don't steal, what the fuck you think they're going to do? They're hungry. So that being said, let's say illegal activity is being instigated by the same people it's being created by. Now bringing this back home, when we talk about the one true law, if you don't break, if right now they threw out the Constitution and they just said don't transgress on a person's free will without their permission, that would save us a lot of time. You know why? Because people will ask you for shit before they did it. So if somebody walk up to you right now and smack the shit out you, okay, that's called assault. But if I walk up to you and I say, hey, do you mind if I slap you in the face? And you say, go right ahead, Johnny. And I slap the shit out you, you just gave me permission. So that being said, when we're talking about even fighting, right? If you fight in the ring, two people have consented to this event. So now it's called a sports event. But if you fight on the street, then that's an illegal activity. The only difference was it was permission over here. It wasn't permission over here. So that being said, we have to understand that the universe is being monetized and commercialized. So what they've done is they've taken the capitalistic society. Capitalism means what? To capitalize. They've taken the capitalistic patriarchal mentality and put it on the universe, and they're literally benefiting off of the one true law. So with that being said, if the one true law is not to transgress on somebody's free will, all they've done is taken every single way that you can and commercialized it to where they can marginalize it and profit. So if the creator said, you know, once again, don't transgress on a person's free will. What they've done is they've said, well, if you take something, that's considered this. So we're going to make that a business policy that we can profit off of. But not only are we going to do that, we're going to do that unfairly. We're going to make it to where people have no choice but to take, and then we're going to penalize them, and then we're going to put them in the prison industrial complex and use them as a cellular module to extract their energy to continue the evil conglomerate of occultism that we're practicing. So that being said, we have to ask ourselves, somebody monetized nature. Who the fuck did that? When apples grew off trees, they didn't come with receipts. So the fact that you have to buy an apple and have a receipt to have proof of purchase shows that somebody has infringed themselves in your life as God, because God never intended for you to pay for a motherfucking thing. So when we say you're paying for something, right, just like in the Bible it says, in that occultic Masonic ass Bible, it says you're going to pay for your sins. Your sins is what? Ignorance. Jesus is what? Jesus Christ. Christ comes from the word Christos, which means anointed. Anointed deals with the pineal gland and higher frequencies and octaves of thought. Your ignorance is your ignorance to oneness with the Creator, and Christ is your own consciousness. And the cross is nothing more than a hexahedron when you open it up, because if you take a cube and you open it up, it forms a cross, and when you close it, it forms a box. And a box is a geometric shape which deals with containment. So the reason that your consciousness died on the cross is because when you close the cross, it forms a box. So that means your consciousness has been contained by the Creator, and that's what the death of Jesus Christ is symbolic to. And then on top of that, not only has your consciousness been contained, you are paying for that ignorance of your contained consciousness. And you pay for what? Currency, money is what? Currency. Currency is electricity. You spend electricity, aka what? Your nervous system, your thoughts is controlled and conducted throughout your body through your nervous system, electrical currents. So you are giving your thoughts, okay, and paying for what you pay attention to. So this is why commercials and everything use subliminal messaging, because they're trying to get you to pay attention to their product, so you'll pay for it. And with that being said, bringing it back all the way around, we have to understand that there's only one true law. Anything else is just some man-made shit. And this is why America got it twisted, because people will fight and die for something they believe in and pay no attention to something that they know. So with that being said, family, we want everybody to understand the wrong way to go and the right way to go. Now, does this mean to go outside and break the law and get yourself into trouble with law enforcement? No. This means the only reason that I'm putting this message out there is for people to understand we're talking about change. Everything must change. Motherfucker, when you get as much time as y'all niggas spend on the internet, you know if you don't hit refresh, the goddamn page won't change. The information on the page won't change. The comments and shit you like to read won't change. So with that being said, we're talking about America. America's not going to change until people understand why it's not changing. And that's because it's in a box. And we're talking about capitalism. We live in a capitalistic society where everything is being marginalized. So right now, if you're going through something, instead of helping you, they'll make a TV show out of your pain and make it a spectacular and write a book. If you get raped, instead of getting you psychological help, they'll give you a show on fucking VH1 about how you got raped on oxygen. So even if you a sick ass rapist and you tie motherfuckers up, you can go right now and watch bondage porn where they tie motherfuckers up and have sex with them. So every type of ideology has been commercialized via negative or positive, and the government is benefiting from your lower and your higher self because that's the way it has been set up to extract your energy, your currency. So that being said, there's only one true law, family, which is to not transgress on the free will of another being. And if you do so, you are breaking the law of the creator. But if you go over 30 miles per hour, if you motherfucking dress a certain way, if you break the dress code, that has nothing to do with the law of the creator. That is the law of a nigga who owns a business. Okay? So we have to understand the difference. So when you go into court, understand what you are truly being judged upon. 9 times out of 10, you did not break the law of God. You broke the law of Lil Jimmy, who owns a business, and you don't know he exists, and you pay him taxes every day, and he's a part of the elites, and he sip fine wines and tea with funky-ass Queen Elizabeth over there in Europe, and they marginalize and extract your energy all throughout your life. So you go to work, okay, 7 days a week, to uphold the system that is doing nothing but holding you down spiritually. And with that being said, family, understand the one true law and follow that. And do what it is you must do within this matrix to survive, but do not become mentally contained or have your consciousness boxed in and live the rest of your life inside of a hexagon. And with that being said, love y'all. Peace. Peace, family. Welcome to YoungPharaoh.net. Subscribe now for exclusive access to me and all of my content for things such as lectures, Pharaoh Universities, children's videos, radio interviews, behind the scenes and documentaries, and much more. Be sure to subscribe now, family. Also, don't forget the internet YouTube promo code, which is YouTubeYP. Internet for a discount off your subscription. So with that being said, family, you get exclusive access to me and all my work. And as I continue to grow, I want y'all to grow with me. So with that being said, family, YoungPharaoh.net, subscribe now. Also follow me on social media, family. Instagram at Pharaoh_Allah, Twitter at Pharaoh_Allah, Facebook at Young Pharaoh, and subscribe now to my YouTube channel at Young Pharaoh. And with that being said, family, I'll see y'all in the classroom. Peace.